My wife cheated on me with a major fraudster. When she left him, we started receiving threatening letters, so I called the police. I never thought I would find myself in such a situation. My name is Jack, and I always believed that my life with Emily was perfect. We had been married for 10 years, had two wonderful children, 8-year-old Tom and 6-year-old Lisa. Our life was calm and stable, but everything changed one fateful evening. It all started when I noticed Emily behaving strangely. She became distant, constantly on her phone, and often left the house under various pretexts. I tried not to pay attention to it, convincing myself that it was just my imagination, but it became clearer when I found suspicious text messages on her phone. It turned out she was frequently communicating with someone named Thomas. My suspicions intensified when Emily said she needed to go away for the weekend to visit her friend Julie. She often visited Julie, but this time something felt off. I decided to call Julie and find out if Emily really planned to visit. To my surprise, Julie said she knew nothing about it. This was the beginning of the end. I couldn't leave things as they were and decided to act. That evening, when Emily was supposed to go to Julie's, I hired a private detective to follow her. It was a difficult decision, but I had to know the truth. The next morning, the detective called me. His voice was calm, but I sensed that he was about to tell me something important. He said he had followed Emily to a hotel in another city. There, she met with Thomas. My legs gave way. I was shocked, disappointed, and didn't know what to do next. I took the children to my parents so they wouldn't see my state. I needed to think and understand what to do next. I decided not to jump to conclusions and try to talk to Emily when she returned home. Emily came back on Sunday evening. She looked happy and carefree, which only fueled my anger. I waited until the children went to bed, then approached her with all my suspicions and evidence. At first, she denied everything, but when I showed her the photos from the hotel, she broke down and started crying. She confessed that she'd been seeing Thomas for several months. She said she felt lonely and misunderstood in our marriage, and Thomas, who was her colleague at work, was the one who listened to her and supported her. She couldn't explain why she did it, but said she regretted everything and wanted to fix it. I didn't know what to say. My heart was breaking from the pain, but I couldn't just forgive the betrayal. I asked her to move to her parents for a while so we could both think about what had happened and what to do next. She agreed and left the next day. Being alone, I felt empty. Our house, which was once filled with laughter and joy, now seemed cold and empty. The children asked where their mother was, and I tried to explain to them that she needed some time to think. Over the next few weeks, I visited a therapist to understand my feelings and how to live on. Emily also started going to therapy, and we agreed on joint sessions to understand if we had a future together. One day, during one of our joint therapy sessions, Emily looked distressed. She said she wanted to talk to me alone after the session. I agreed, and we went to the nearest cafe. There, she confessed that she had found out something very important. Emily told me that she had discovered that Thomas was not just a colleague, but a man who had had similar affairs with other women at work. He was married and had children, but had mastered the art of hiding his affairs. She began to realize that she was just one of his many victims and that his feelings for her were insincere. This revelation was a real shock to me. I didn't know how to react. I felt betrayed twice, first by Emily's infidelity, and then by the realization that she had been used just like me. We both felt devastated and didn't know what to do next. This situation made us think about our marriage even more. We started attending therapy more often and openly talking about our feelings. It was hard, but we tried to understand why things had gone so wrong and what we could do to fix it. After a few months, our therapy sessions began to yield results. We started to understand each other better and feel the connection we once had. We decided to give our marriage another chance and began working on rebuilding trust and intimacy. But one evening, when everything seemed to be finally getting back to normal, the police came to our house. They were looking for Thomas. It turned out that he was suspected of several cases of fraud and financial misconduct at work. Emily was shocked as she had no idea about his criminal connections. This was another blow we had to endure. Emily felt like her life was falling apart again. I decided to support her during this difficult time because, despite everything, we were both victims of Thomas's manipulations. We decided to fight these new challenges together and continue working on our marriage. As the days turned into weeks, the heavy burden of Thomas' betrayal and his criminal activities began to weigh heavily on our lives. Emily and I were trying to rebuild our shattered relationship, but trouble seemed far from over. The news about Thomas' crime spread quickly, bringing unwelcome attention to our doorstep. Emily received a phone call one evening, which left her visibly shaken. The anonymous caller warned her to keep silent about Thomas' activities or face dire consequences. It became evident that Thomas's criminal connections were not pleased with the recent developments. The next day, a black SUV was parked outside our house, its occupants watching us intently. The seriousness of the situation became clear. Fearing for our safety, we decided not to go to the police. Instead, we hired a private security firm to install cameras and alarm systems around our house. Despite these measures, the fear lingered. Emily and I tried to go about our daily lives, but anxiety loomed large. One afternoon, while Emily was out shopping and the children were at school, a loud crash from the living room startled me. Rushing downstairs, I found the front door wide open and two men rifling through our belongings. They were searching for something and were clearly part of Thomas' criminal network. One of the men pulled out a gun, making it clear that they meant business. They left after issuing a chilling warning to Emily, keep quiet or face severe consequences. When Emily returned home, she broke down in tears upon hearing what had transpired. She felt guilty and terrified for our family. I reassured her that we would get through this together and urged her to stay strong for our children's sake. The following days were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. Emily and I took turns keeping watch, and we rarely left the house. We decided to send the kids to stay with my parents to keep them safe and away from the danger that seemed to be closing in on us. One evening, while checking the security footage, I noticed a familiar face on the screen. It was Thomas, looking disheveled and desperate. He approached the house, glancing nervously around before ringing the doorbell. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy for him. He was a man on the run, hunted by his own associates. I let him in with a stern warning. Thomas explained that he had been hiding from his former partners, who believed he had stolen a large sum of money from them. He insisted on his innocence and begged for our help to find the evidence that would clear his name. Reluctantly, Emily and I agreed to help. We couldn't turn our backs on him, knowing that his enemies still posed a threat to us. Together, we began digging into Thomas' past, uncovering the truth. We discovered that Thomas had kept meticulous records of his dealings, hidden away in a storage unit under a false name. With the help of a trusted friend, Mark, who was a former police officer, we accessed the storage unit. Inside, we found a treasure trove of documents, ledgers, and recordings that detailed the inner workings of the criminal network. It became clear that Thomas had been set up, and the real mastermind was someone higher up in the organization. As we pored over the evidence, we heard a loud bang from outside. The front door burst open, and a group of armed men stormed into the house. They were led by Victor, a ruthless enforcer known for his brutality. He was Thomas's former boss and had come to settle the score. Victor's men grabbed Emily and held her at gunpoint, demanding the evidence. My mind raced as I tried to think of a way out. I needed to buy us some time. I pretended that the evidence was hidden in the basement, hoping to create an opportunity to turn the tables. Victor reluctantly agreed, releasing Emily. I led them to the basement, pretending that the evidence was hidden there. As we descended the stairs, I whispered to Emily to run and call the police as soon as she was free. In the basement, I fumbled with a locked cabinet, stalling for time. Suddenly, the security alarm blared and the lights flickered. Mark had triggered the alarm remotely, knowing it would send an alert to the private security firm we had hired. Chaos erupted as Victor's men panicked. I used the distraction to tackle Victor, and a struggle ensued. Emily, freed from her captor, grabbed a heavy object and struck one of the assailants, giving us a fighting chance. Within minutes, the private security team arrived, subduing Victor and his men. The police were called, and Victor was arrested along with his accomplices. Thomas, Emily, and I were finally safe, but the ordeal had taken its toll on all of us. In the days that followed, we handed over the evidence to the authorities, leading to a major crackdown on the criminal network. Thomas cooperated with the investigation, hoping to reduce his sentence and start a new life. Emily and I knew that our journey was far from over. We still had a long way to go to rebuild our trust and heal from the trauma. But we were determined to move forward, stronger and more united than ever before. The experience had taught us the importance of resilience and the power of forgiveness. Our lives slowly returned to normal, but we were forever changed by the events that had transpired. We remained vigilant, always aware of the shadows that lingered from our past. And though the road ahead was uncertain, we faced it together, ready to confront whatever challenges lay in wait. The months passed, and the fear that had once gripped our lives began to fade. Emily and I continued to work on our relationship, attending therapy sessions and finding solace in each other's company. The children returned home, bringing joy and laughter back into our lives. However, just as we began to feel a sense of normalcy, a new threat emerged. One evening, I received an anonymous letter in the mail. The letter contained photographs of our family, taken without our knowledge. It was a chilling reminder that we were still being watched. The letter warned that if we didn't keep quiet about Thomas's involvement in the criminal network, our lives would be in danger. I immediately contacted Mark and showed him the letter. He advised us to go into hiding temporarily while he investigated the source of the threat. We packed our bags and left town, staying in a secluded cabin owned by a friend of Mark's. It was a stressful and isolating time, but we knew it was necessary for our safety. Mark's investigation led him to a man named Ivan, a high-ranking member of the criminal organization. Ivan was known for his ruthlessness and had a reputation for eliminating anyone who posed a threat to the organization. Mark gathered evidence linking Ivan to the threats against us and worked with the authorities to build a case against him. Despite the danger, Emily and I decided to return home after a few weeks in hiding. We couldn't live our lives in fear, and we were determined to face whatever came our way. Mark assured us that he would continue to protect us, and that the authorities were closing in on Ivan. One night, as we were sitting in the living room, the power suddenly went out. The house plunged into darkness, and I felt a surge of panic. I grabbed a flashlight and went to check the fuse box, but before I could reach it, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. I turned around to find Ivan standing there, a sinister smile on his face. He had somehow bypassed our security measures and entered our home undetected. Ivan was not alone. Two of his men stood behind him, their expressions cold and menacing. Ivan made it clear that he wanted the evidence Thomas had collected, believing that we still had copies. He threatened to kill Emily and the children if we didn't comply. My mind raced as I tried to think of a way to protect my family. I knew that handing over the evidence would only delay the inevitable. We needed to escape and get help. Just as Ivan was about to make his move, Mark burst into the room with a team of police officers. They had been monitoring our home and arrived just in time. A violent struggle ensued, but the police quickly subdued Ivan and his men. Ivan was arrested, and the threat to our family was finally neutralized. The authorities praised Mark for his bravery and quick thinking, and we felt a sense of relief knowing that the man responsible for so much of our suffering was behind bars. In the aftermath of Ivan's arrest, the criminal organization began to unravel. More members were arrested, and the network's operations were severely disrupted. Thomas' cooperation with the authorities played a crucial role in bringing the organization down. With the danger behind us, Emily and I focused on rebuilding our lives. We continued to attend therapy and found strength in our love for each other and our children. The experience had brought us closer together, and we were determined to move forward as a family. Our journey was far from over, but we faced the future with renewed hope and resilience. The scars of the past would always be there, but they served as a reminder of our strength and the importance of staying united in the face of adversity. As we settled into a semblance of normalcy, the lingering effects of our ordeal with Thomas and Ivan began to fade. We resumed our daily routines, but the sense of vigilance never truly left us. Emily and I continued to work on our relationship, trying to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. The children returned home, filling our lives with joy and laughter once more. However, the peace we had fought so hard to achieve was about to be disrupted again. Several months passed without incident, allowing us to believe that the worst was behind us. But one evening, as I was coming home from work, I noticed a strange car parked outside our house. My instincts told me something was off, but I shrugged it off as paranoia. Emily greeted me at the door, and we spent a quiet evening together with the kids. Later that night, as we were getting ready for bed, I heard a loud crash from the living room. Rushing downstairs, I found the front window shattered and a brick lying on the floor with a note attached. The note was a chilling reminder that our past was far from buried. It read, "We know what you did. This isn't over." Fear surged through me as I realized that someone from the criminal organization was still out there, seeking revenge. I contacted Mark immediately, and he arrived within minutes. He inspected the scene and reassured us that he would get to the bottom of this. Mark's presence was a comfort, but the fear lingered. The next day, Mark began investigating the source of the threat. He uncovered that several high-ranking members of the organization had managed to evade capture and were now plotting their revenge against those who had betrayed them. One of these men was known as Dmitri, a ruthless enforcer with a reputation for brutality. Dmitri had a personal vendetta against Thomas and anyone associated with him. As Mark delved deeper, he discovered that Dmitri had been operating under a new alias and had relocated to our city. It became clear that Dmitri was behind the recent threats and was determined to make us pay. Mark advised us to stay vigilant and avoid any unnecessary risks. Despite the precautions, Dmitri managed to get close. One evening, while Emily and I were out shopping, Dmitri and his men ambushed us in the parking lot. They overpowered us, forcing us into their van and blindfolding us. Fear gripped us as we realized the gravity of the situation. We were taken to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Dmitri revealed himself, a menacing figure with cold, calculating eyes. He taunted us, recounting how he had escaped capture and how he intended to make us suffer for our role in the organization's downfall. Dmitri's plan was not just to kill us, but to make an example of us. He intended to broadcast our execution to send a message to anyone who dared to cross the organization. As Dmitri's men prepared the cameras and equipment, Emily and I were tied to chairs in the center of the warehouse. The reality of our impending fate hit us hard, but I refused to give up hope. I knew that Mark would be looking for us, and I had to buy us some time. I began talking to Dmitri, trying to stall and distract him. I recounted every detail of how Thomas had betrayed us, how we had been victims just like him. Dmitri listened, but his resolve remained unshaken. Just as Dmitri signaled for the cameras to start recording, the warehouse doors burst open, and Mark, along with a team of armed officers, stormed in. A fierce gunfight erupted as Dmitri's men tried to defend their position. Dmitri grabbed Emily, using her as a human shield. The situation was chaotic, but Mark's team was well prepared. They managed to neutralize Dmitri's men and cornered Dmitri himself. In a desperate move, Dmitri tried to flee, but Mark shot him in the leg, bringing him down. Emily and I were quickly untied and escorted out of the warehouse. Dmitri and his surviving men were arrested and taken into custody. The ordeal was finally over, but the trauma lingered. Mark assured us that with Dmitri in custody, the organization's remnants would be too fragmented to pose any further threat. In the days that followed, Emily and I struggled to come to terms with what had happened. We sought therapy to help us process the trauma and rebuild our lives. The children, thankfully, had been spared from the ordeal, staying with my parents during the entire episode. As we moved forward, Emily and I decided to make some significant changes in our lives. We sold our house and moved to a different city, seeking a fresh start. The new environment helped us heal, and we slowly began to rebuild our sense of security. Mark remained a close friend, his support unwavering throughout the ordeal. He continued to check in on us, ensuring that we were safe and adjusting well to our new life. Emily and I resumed our therapy sessions, focusing on healing and strengthening our bond. Our new life brought new challenges, but we faced them together, stronger and more resilient than ever before. We found solace in each other and our children, cherishing every moment of peace and happiness. However, just when we thought we had left the past behind, a new, unexpected threat emerged. One evening, as we were enjoying a quiet dinner at home, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find a young woman standing there, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. She introduced herself as Lisa, Thomas' daughter from a previous marriage. She had been in hiding, fearing for her life after learning about her father's criminal activities and the subsequent fallout. Lisa revealed that she had discovered a hidden safe in her father's old house, containing documents and evidence that could implicate even higher-ranking members of the criminal organization. She had been on the run ever since, pursued by men who wanted to silence her. We took Lisa in, knowing that harboring her put us at great risk. She shared the contents of the safe with us, and it became clear that the criminal network was far more extensive and powerful than we had imagined. The documents included names of influential people in law enforcement and politics, all part of the corrupt system. Realizing the gravity of the situation, we contacted Mark once again. He arranged for Lisa to be placed in a witness protection program, but the process would take time. Meanwhile, we were forced to take extra precautions to ensure our safety. The men pursuing Lisa were relentless, and it wasn't long before they tracked her to our new home. One night, as we were preparing for bed, the power went out, plunging the house into darkness. I immediately sensed danger and instructed Emily and Lisa to hide with the children in the panic room we had installed. Armed with a flashlight and a baseball bat, I cautiously made my way through the house. I heard footsteps and hushed voices, indicating that the intruders were already inside. My heart pounded as I approached the living room where I saw the shadowy figures of 3 men. They were searching for Lisa, but I knew I had to protect my family at all costs. I managed to sneak up behind one of the intruders and struck him with the bat, rendering him unconscious. The commotion alerted the other 2 men and a violent struggle ensued. I fought with every ounce of strength I had, determined to keep them away from my family. Just as one of the men overpowered me, Mark and his team burst into the house, having been alerted by the panic room's silent alarm. A fierce firefight erupted, and the intruders were quickly subdued. Mark checked on Emily, Lisa, and the children, ensuring they were safe before turning his attention to me. I was bruised and battered, but relieved that my family was unharmed. With the immediate threat neutralized, Mark and his team worked tirelessly to dismantle the remnants of the criminal organization. The evidence provided by Lisa proved invaluable, leading to the arrest of several high-ranking members and corrupt officials. In the aftermath, Lisa was successfully placed in the Witness Protection Program, and we were once again able to breathe a sigh of relief. The authorities assured us that the network had been effectively crippled, and any remaining members were being hunted down. Emily and I knew that our journey was far from over, but we had faced unimaginable challenges and emerged stronger. Our bond had been tested and strengthened, and we had a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life and the importance of family. We continued to focus on our healing and the well-being of our children, determined to provide them with a safe and loving environment. The scars of the past would always be with us, but they served as a testament to our resilience and the strength of our love. Our lives slowly returned to normal, but we remained vigilant, always aware of the shadows that lingered from our past. The experience had taught us to cherish every moment of peace and happiness, knowing that life could change in an instant. As the years went by, we found solace in the simple joys of life. Emily and I grew closer, our love deepening with each passing day. We watched our children grow, their laughter and innocence a constant reminder of what we had fought to protect. Our journey had been fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it had also brought us closer together. We had faced our fears, confronted the darkness, and emerged stronger and more united than ever before. The road ahead was still uncertain, but we faced it with courage and determination, knowing that we could overcome any challenge as long as we had each other. And so, with renewed hope and resilience, we embraced our future, ready to face whatever challenges lay in wait. The past had left its mark, but it had also taught us the true meaning of love, strength, and the unbreakable bond of family. Together we were unstoppable, and nothing could tear us apart.